Alright, Diablo players, there is a massive update. I mean, I'm not even kidding when I say that this is going to be one of the biggest patches ever in Diablo 4 history. So, what's in the massive update? So, this is going to be specifically for Season 7. Whether you have the expansion or not, there's going to be some big changes here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom in so you guys can read it maybe a little bit better. So, hop in. Let's get started. So for starters, Spiritborn, the Seeker. This is the ultimate, by the way. It is the ultimate with the bird ultimate. So it's just gonna get a little bit more damage here. And then we have Harmonious Seeker. So I'm just gonna read what kind of the newer updates do over here. So what it does is it knocks down the enemies for 4 seconds. Both first and its second hits are now guaranteed critically strikes. It used to be only the first one. So a little bit more damage over there. Remember, one of the biggest updates to this season is specifically the ultimates. You can now put multiple points into it, so it should be a lot stronger. So base game, the balance changes. So these have to do with the witch powers. These are all changes from the PTR. If you guys want to learn more about the witch powers, how they kind of play, as well as the brand new legendary gems, check the pin. There's going to be a bunch of more so gameplay and stuff if you guys want to check that out. But let's go over the numbers. So fire bats, we're getting a damage increase and then a frequency increase. So that's actually a pretty big buff on these two. Then we have Abyssal Resonance getting another 100% increase, and the frequency is limited to every 2 seconds. Hexaflame getting a 30% damage increase, and then we have the frequency is now limited, so there's, I would say this is probably a nerf. Aura of Lament, the resource gain is going to be upgraded by 1. Poison Frog Servant is getting a massive buff. Hex of Whispers, Fortify gain reduced from 60 to 15% of the player's maximum health. They have Aura of Siphoning, so its damage got increased by 30%. Doom Orb getting 100% damage increase. And then Vengeful Spirit, we have a damage increase from 500 to 750%. And then the Cycle, the frequency limited per target is increased from 5 to 2. And the frequency is now limited to a maximum of 3 seconds, or 3 a second. And then we have the Occult Gems updates. So the Elder Sigil, the Incarnate Tag changed to Potency. With Phantom Sting, the overpowered damage got reduced. So this is going to be a nerf over here for overpowered builds. And then from 40 to 15. And then Pointed Finger, the bonus got changed from 25 to 15. Toadsing Wish, the bonus got changed from 25 to 35. Vulture Talon, the dot tick speed got increased. So this could be something pretty good if you're running a dot build. And then the damage bonus got reduced from 4 to 2.5 on Duststone. Moonlight Ward, the max resist changed from 1% to 0.5. This is something that I believe stacks a few different times. I believe now you can only get 5. I think this is a total of maybe 2.5 or 5% versus potentially getting 5 to 10. So it's a kind of a big change over there. Max resist is a very powerful stat though. Then we have Witching Hour. The timer got reduced from 5 to 1 second. So next up we have in general the aspect of Apologetic Furor. The ultimate skill damage bonus per stat got reduced from 8 to 18% to 6 to 10. And then the maximum ultimate skill damage bonus reduced from 80 to 100 and 80 to 60 to 100. So pretty big changes over there. Then Vehement Brawler's aspect, the ultimate skill ranks got reduced from 4 to 2, so reduction over there. Then ultimate ranks 5 bonuses scaling 2 or more attributes have been adjusted due to scaling incorrectly and gaining too much value. Alright, so let's check out the Barbarian updates. So Hammer of the Ancients, we're getting a 10% DPS increase. With the Furious Hammer of the Ancients, critical strike chance and damage per Fury increase. This is almost doubled. So I think they really want us to play Hammer of the Ancients, guys. Now, I'm going to be real with you. The Whirlwind damage increased by 4%. Probably just a forgettable stat. I'm hoping one day Whirlwind will be viable. But Iron Maelstrom, we have rank 5 bonus damage while healthy and injured. Scaling bonuses reduced from 80 to 60. Then we have Prime Iron Maelstrom, the critical strike damage getting increased by 10%. The Supreme Iron Maelstrom, so previously dealing direct damage to an enemy after swapping weapon, reduces its cooldown. Now swapping weapons reduces Iron Maelstrom's cooldown. Okay, so now you don't even have to do damage, you just keep on weapon swapping. And then with the Passive Belligerence, we're getting a bonus damage after damaging with a basic skill got increased by 1%. Tempered Fury, we get an extra 2 over here. Walking Arsenal. So previously direct damage with two-handed bludgeoning, two-handed slashing, or dual-wielded weapons granted a 15% increased damage for 10 seconds. While all 3 bonuses are active, you gain 20% crowd control duration and attack speed. So it's a total have 15% increased damage and then 20% attack speed. Now, when you use those things, you get you still get the 15% increased damage, and then while all 3 bonuses, you get 25% crowd control duration and attack speed. So another 5% boost for this stat here. And then with Gushing Wounds, which I believe it didn't take like some massive rework or nerfs. I remember that this thing was incredibly OP for a while. Back in season 5, the bleed explosion damage got increased from 120 over 5 seconds to 150. So they're rebuffing it because no one's really using it because it got nerfed pretty hard. Well, I'll be honest, last season it was just all Spiritborn. Then with the legendary aspects of Incendiary Fissures, Earthquake damage bonus got increased over here. So it's going to be like a Hoda Earthquake Barbarian that looks like to be the flavor of the month. Earthquake scaling got reduced from 25% for every 100 shrink to 15%. So it's a nerf over there. Then the Earthquake bonus damage gets increased. You know, I'm really curious to know how you guys feel about this, even though there's a lot of notes to go through. But, like, I don't understand why they, like, nerf it in one way, but then buff it in another way. It's like, well, is it still staying the same, or is it going to be better? Because it's really hard to kind of gauge off of all of these like numbers, because as far as on the higher end, when you're trying to scale things really, really far into the game, this is where like the nerf would be bigger, but then you do get a bonus to maybe compensate for it. So like, why bother changing 2 of the stats that you know that people are going to be playing in the same build? So you're buffing it and nerfing it. So I really just feel like what they should do is just change one number, and it's almost like they're changing so many things for the sake of making like the patch notes longer, but also like it makes more work for who's ever in the design. If the Earthquake is doing too much damage, just get one of the multipliers that you know people are going to be playing, just change that one. We don't need to reduce this one by a huge amount and then buff up another one. It just seems like it's unnecessary work. That's just the way I kind of view, like, you know, the game in terms of its direction. It's just like unnecessary like work. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue. So Bolkathos Earthquake damage bonus got increased. So you nerfed it here, but then you buff it over here. So it's really hard to gauge, again, is this a nerf overall, or is it buff overall, or is it the same? But anyways, unique items, the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury, Hammer the Ancients, bonus damage after earthquakes explode. Again, another buff, so like, you nerfed it in one area, but you buffed it in triple areas. I'm assuming this makes it better, but again, it's really hard with Diablo 4 to gauge, because, you know, unintended interactions and stuff usually lead to like the strongest build in the game anyways. Field of Crimson, blood pool damage. I believe this is the unique, so you get increases. I don't see this being a good. Force of Nature, damage versus close scaling amount getting increased by 10%, and the maximum bonus getting increased by another 50% here. Next up, the Druid, so Lacerate. 5 bonus, or rank 5 bonus, the critical damage scaling bonus got reduced, but now can be cancelled when using the skill again. That's interesting. Raging Shred poison damage got increased from 30x to 100. Like, these are like crazy, huge number increases here for that. But again, the thing with Diablo, sometimes like with a skill like Rabies, you can keep on buffing it like 10 different areas, but if it's still not good enough to be competitive, it's almost like a bait. So keep in mind, sometimes when you go for a huge damage multiplier, I got baited by Teleport getting a 500x damage increase. I thought that was going to be good, but don't get too baited by just seeing a big number, because if the base is too low, then it doesn't really matter. So anyways, with Toxic Claws, we no longer requires critical strikes to triggers off of any damage from Lacerate or Shred. Bonus damage per rank got increased. Okay, so another buff over there. With Bad Omen, the Lightning Bolts got increased. The Runeworker's Conduit for the Aspect over here. Bonus damage scaling reduced from every 25% for every 100 willpower to 15. Then the Blurred Beast. This is it seems like a massive buff. Again, with Diablo 4, it's kind of hard to gauge here. But it now deals more, previously it did the same amount of damage, and then the first dash lands up to 4 additional strikes based on the distance traveled. Now, it just has a 33% chance to land additional strikes up to 4 times. So it rolls a 33% chance 4 different times, so on average you should be getting additional strike every single time. Now, I'm pretty sure in the patch notes, at least what they showed up, I'm pretty sure like this was on a one-hander. So if you run this on a 2, like a 140 here that can hit multiple times, that is quite big here. Then the unique, the Dolmen Stone. Number of active boulders now displaced, so it's great for quality of life, and now can move while casting boulders, so it's going to feel more like Ball Lightning, a little bit faster. There's also another update to Ball Lightning that does the same thing. Lupin Ferocity critical strike bonus damage got increased by another 50%. And next up, we got the Necromancer. So in the enhanced Bone Spear, the Bone Spear breaks into 3 bone shards when it's destroyed. That deals some sort of, it does 25% damage each, so basically 75% total, assuming that you can shotgun the ability. And then we have the new update makes so Bone Spear makes the first enemy hit vulnerable. So we get free vulnerability and breaks into 3 bone shards. So basically, you just get vulnerability. Okay. Now with Supernatural, it's going to make the first enemy hit vulnerable for 3 seconds and deal overpower damage by 30%. Now it does 40% more overpower damage and restores 5% maximum life after overpower. Now, this is a key word from Path of Exile. More damage versus increased damage means it's a multiplicative multiplier. I don't know if this is intended, but they say 30% increase, where now it's saying more. I don't know. This could be very, very insane if this is like a separate multiplier. I really don't think so, but unless they meant it's just 10% more damage than it used to do before. Or does this mean that it's a total of 70 because it's 40% more than what it was before? Some of this wording, it really is important to kind of note, but just take that one with a grain of salt if that's one's going to be insanely OP or not. Army of the Dead, and remember, there's going to be a big buff to minions this season. Specifically for like the Druid, but the Necromancer should be good as well for the minions. So Skeleton Mage and Golem damage scaling bonuses got reduced. Now remember, keep in mind there's a lot of buffs to minions, so more likely this is to kind of compensate for it. Then Bloodwave, the bonus damage scaling got reduced. Bone Storm, the critical strike damage scaling has been reduced by 10%. And then with Supreme Bone Storm, your critical strike and attack speed is now going to get increased. So over here, you can see it was just crit strike chance. So 20% more attack speed is definitely welcoming. It just matters if it's in category 1 or 2. And then next up, we have the Bone Dester's aspect, where Bone Spear is guaranteed to crit enemies within Bone Prism and deals 40% increased damage. Now it's guaranteed to overpower. Overpower is a lot stronger than crit, because you can get 100% crit in Diablo, but getting 100% overpower is quite difficult, and it is going to deal even more damage. So I would say look out for Bone Spear to be kind of maybe a flavor of the month. There's also like a Blood Wave with the Necromancer. And then Deathless Visage, which is actually a pretty good item already, surprisingly. It actually does more damage than Harlequin. So this is crit strike damage getting increased over here, and then the echo damage scaling increased by, instead of 20 to 25, so you get way more crit damage on this. That's going to be good. I definitely think that they want people to run like some sort of blood and bone build as well. They were kind of talking about that. And then we have Lithoswall additional Bone Storms now spawn closer together. And then we have crit strike damage per active Bone Storm getting increased from 10 to 20%. Remember, you're going to get multiple of these, right? So it's going to be good. Next up with the Rogue, the Dance of Knives, the Pierce chance got increased. Wow, I was not expecting to get a buff from this, as this was actually a pretty good ability already. Then we have Supreme Death Trap, which damages enemies who resist it, and its pull increased from 120 to 180. So that's going to be better for bossing, right? And then with Shadow Step, you cleave an area using Shadow Step, cleaves tempering affix over here. And then we have radius increased and the angle getting increased. So hopefully Shadow Step will finally see some play. I really wanted to make this build since the start of the game. It's basically like a Flicker Strike build, you just teleport. And now that it cleaves in an AoE, maybe now it's finally time to actually try it out. Rain of Arrows, they're getting damage to distance and enemy scaling bonus got reduced. And then we have the passives, because remember, you're going to be able to put more points into the ability anyways. And then with Exposure, that active cooldown reduction for trap skills got increased, so that's cool. And then the aspect of Star Shards, damage getting increased. Ooh, that's a double right here. Star Shards is the one for your Dance of Knives, which is pretty much what everyone's going to be playing to level up with the Rogue, because it's just by a long shot the best. And then Bitter Infection, periodic damage increased from 30 to 50 to 30 to 70 of Shadow Imbuement's damage. And again, you're going to combo this with Star Shards, so this is going to be awesome. This is going to be really fun for the Rogue this season. Slice and Dice aspect, Twisting Blades cleave area increase the radius and the angle, so that's going to be good for that build. And then there's a brand new unique item, and it's getting changed, or buff. So the mobility skills is getting an extra 1 rank at the highest level. Now keep in mind, this is a unique, which means if you roll greater affix, you get 50% bonus on whatever it would roll, right? And then with the Shadow Imbue on the Assassin's Stride, another increase here. Cool stuff, man. And then we have the Sorcerer. So skills, Ice Shards, the damage to frozen enemies is increased by 25. We have Mystical Frost Nova. Frost Nova makes enemies vulnerable, and it's going to increase to 6 seconds against bosses. Okay, cool. And then now Frost Nova makes enemies vulnerable and increases the damage they take from you by 15x, increased to 8 seconds against bosses. Cool. So this is a pretty big buff for the Sorceress, because vulnerability is a little bit more difficult for the class. There is, I think, auras that will let you kind of activate this a little bit more frequently. with the new seasonal like Witchcraft powers. And then next up we have the Shimmering Frost Nova, which makes it so Frost Nova grants you the extra dodge before. And so now it's just going to, and it was 3% per enemy hit for 8 seconds. Now it's just flat out 15. And now it restores 10% of your missing mana for every enemy hit, and then hitting a boss with a Frost Nova restores 100% of your mana. This is actually pretty big. Now I'm wondering if there's any way to, I don't know if there's a rune that activates Frost Nova. I know that there are pants that can give you Frost Nova, and that could basically give you infinite mana, if that was still like an issue that you were trying to solve. There are other ways to solve like infinite mana, like Starless Skies is excellent for that. There's probably a few other ways to get to infinite mana, but till then, that might be something to consider. A really cool buff for sure, because it would give you 20 mana on dodge, but well, I don't know if you really scaled that much into like the evade mechanic, or dodge is what they call it in Diablo. But that's a really nice quality of life change for sure. Now with Invoked Ice Blades, previously we had Ice Blades would gain 10% attack speed per active blade. Now you and your Ice Blades gain 10% attack speed per active Ice Blade. Okay, so that's another buff because you would then summon more Ice Blades, and the Ice Blades can then attack, reducing your cooldowns and getting more Ice Blades. So Ice Blades might be something to not sign out. You can summon a lot of them. And then Deep Freeze, previously you would encase yourself. This thing would do like not enough damage. What's the new damage number now? I'm guaranteeing they're buffing it, right? So it's 4 seconds, chilling enemies for 14%. When Deep Freeze ends, you explode for... Oh, so basically it's double damage. I'll be honest, it's still probably not going to see play because it's just you deal no damage for that long duration. But it does say when Deep Freeze ends, so maybe you can cast it and then immediately cancel it. Because it does say when Deep Freeze expires, it deals additional damage. Now it's when it ends. So, yeah, you could activate and cancel it. Oh, additionally, okay, that's exactly what I was saying. Okay, there we go. And then vulnerable damage scaling got reduced on it. But again, I don't know if people will be playing this anyways, but we'll see. I mean, I always want to see a skill like perform well. So then we have Supreme Deep Freeze. So when it ends, surrounding enemies are made vulnerable, and your non-ultimate skills are reset. Now, its initial hit makes surrounding enemies vulnerable. After it ends, your non-ultimate cooldowns are instantly reset, and your frost skills deal 25% increased damage for 5 seconds. Okay, that's pretty cool. So now we can cast it, end it, and then we can go ahead and just deal 25% increased damage. If you get its cooldown, reduced long enough, then you could just keep this up. Yes, you just have 25% extra damage as an ultimate, and maybe you can have some fun with that. Inferno, it now makes them vulnerable, and enemies now within Inferno are continually made vulnerable during the duration. Cool. Little buff for that. And then with the passives, with Permafrost, previous was 5% increased damage to elites. Now you deal 6% increased damage while Frost skill is in your action bar, which I think that everyone's playing pretty much the 2 flame shields, right? As well as flame and ice shield, right? So you run both those anyways. Cool. And then a known issue incorrectly stakes the bonus. Okay, that's fine. And then the bonus is now doubled if all of your skills are the same element. Okay, so this is on the passive. Cool stuff. So you can kind of facilitate the fantasy of like all ice, all lightning. Be kind of cool. But like the main problem that I have with this is that like every single build needs teleport. Let's be real here. You're not going to be playing a build without teleport. Most people will play ice. I think maybe if you made like this so much larger, the problem with this is that then people would say, oh, you're forcing me to get it because it just gives me so much damage. So, I don't know. This is a really hard thing to balance to make everyone happy. I think it should be like if 3 or 4, because then there's still a little bit more play, because there's just no way that you play the sword class and just don't play teleport or like the shields. I mean, let's just be real here. And what's weird is like they kind of have this fantasy of like they want you to be cold, fire, lightning, and get the bonuses with Talrashas, right? Which is in every single build as well. So it's going to be hard for this to be actually good. And it would have to be even crazier. Anyways, Inner Flames, damage getting increased by another 6%. Asu's Ferocity, the critical damage above 50% life got increased from 25 to 50. And Enlightenment, the charges gained per cast got reduced from 15 to 8. Then with the enchantments, the Firebolt, so you no longer deal, oh wait, it says previous dealing damage has a chance to heal you for 4% of your maximum life. Now, you still get that, but dealing burning damage has a chance to heal you for that, and then also unleash that Firebolt at a nearby enemy. So maybe if you run a Firebolt build, this could be a pretty big buff because, I mean, that's just more Firebolts, right? And that was already, as far as I'm aware of, that was the top tier build for SORC, right, for push. Then we have the Spark Enhancement to transform crackling energy got increased from 14 to 20%. And then the legendary aspects, the aspect of splintering energy. The critical strike damage bonus now scales from 60 to 100, and the aspect of Frozen Memories. Previously, it was the Avalanche Key passive would apply to 2 additional casts, where you get like the free extra thing for the cold skill, and then now it applies to 2 additional casts, and its damage to vulnerable enemies is increased. So that's a pretty big, sizable increase over there. If it says 75x damage. And then we have Aspect of Engulfing Flames. The damage increase for each second burning from 6 to 30 to 45. So it's like a 50% increase right there, right? Going from 30 to 45. And then in case Aspect Life and Mana gain per second is increased. So that's going to be nice for Mana Sustain. Then we have the Strike of Stormhorn. So the bonus damage from Super Ball Lightning got increased from 100 to 125. I'll be honest though, I think everyone's going to be playing the Ball Lightning one. The numerical stats just line up for that one to be way better, because the chance for double cast gives you the Super Ball Lightning, which was, what, 125x versus, I believe it was like 180x damage. And remember, the ones that spin around can hit multiple times, and the chance for double cast gets converted into Super Ball Lightning, so you don't even get like the double damage right there, because you're getting double of them, unless there is a limit on the amount of ball lightnings that you can summon. I just don't see people really wanting to play super over the other one, but who knows, maybe there's some hidden other stat that is unknown. But I could tell you, as far as numbers goes, the other one where it's spinning should be objectively better. Anyways, next up with the Tactician Glyph, we get a damage increase by 5%. That's cool. And then the Mastery area got increased by 10. The damage got increased by another 1%. And then scaling to match similar glyphs start at 3%. And then with the Electrocute Glyph, we get another, that's a decent amount. We get another 15% crit. And then Static Surge damage getting increased by 10%. Then Fundamental Release, maximum damage enemies take from you got increased by another 20%. And then Enchantment Master, the bonus got increased to 30%. Now with Searing Heat, the Pyromancy skills had an increased critical strike chance and dealt increased direct damage up to 10% of your crit strike damage, up to 60%. And then current direct damage bonus is X. Okay, so I guess it just goes up to 60, and then what is the new update? So Pyromancy, you still have this, and all of your skills do increase direct damage up to 10% of your critical strike damage up to 60. Am I reading? Is this like literally the same text? And all of your, and deal direct damage equal, and all of your skills. Oh, is it just am I okay? 10% of your critical strike damage bonus, current direct. Okay, so I'm not sure why they have current direct damage bonus. Like, this line is kind of unnecessary. It's just like rewording it. Okay, I'll have to wait and see when the game comes out. Maybe these numbers actually like changed over here. But the bonus goes up to 60, and it's a 10%, and it's a 12% increased critical strike chance. And it still says Pyromancy skills. I'm not sure about that one. Anyways, Icefall. Previous, your frost skills would deal 25% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and applies is doubled if it's frozen. Now, it's your frost skills deal 25% increased damage, and this bonus is doubled to apply to all of your damage against frozen enemies and bosses. That's cool. So you can just run like Nova, and then you can, this part of it where it only deals this bonus is applied to all of your damage against frozen enemies and bosses. So pretty much that means you could just run Icefall on everything now, as long as you can freeze the targets. There's probably other ways that you can freeze certain things. And then a bunch of bug fixes over here, and then now they're going to be talking about Season of Witchcraft. As far as bugs go, I'm not going to harp too much on bugs. There's probably a bunch of like bug fixes, but certain things where like they weren't spawning in, this wasn't doing damage properly. But I'm going to kind of skim this, as I kind of wanted to just go over like the updates. These are just like bug fixes for most of them. And then that's like the miscellaneous. Now, since this is already a pretty long video, I'm going to reserve the Vessel of Hatred, because actually there's going to be some newer items. I'm going to keep like the giant patch notes in part 1 and part 2, just so the video isn't, I actually think this video may be several hours long if I keep it at once. So we'll keep it in these short little segments. But anyways, let me know, guys, what you thought so far of the class balance updates and the skill updates so far. Are you guys excited about it? Honestly, Sorceress is looking a lot better. There's so many buffs for Sorceress. Like, it is awesome. So if I was a SORC player, I would get very excited, but I'll be honest, I'm 100% rolling Rogue first, because the Shadow Clone Army build is definitely going to be something that I'm interested in. And you guys can let me know what you feel about the patch and what class you plan to start on Season 6 down below. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'll be dropping part 2 of this very, very soon. So if you're new here, subscribe to the bell, and I'll be dropping it really, really soon. Anyways, take care. Peace out.